Help of an erotic film, it broke the box office record in all of France, and with an Asian face alone, it forcefully won the Oscar for Best Actor. It also made Tony Leung captivate thousands of French girls, and netizens who watched exclaimed it was even more exciting than Lust, Caution. Tony was the only son of a wealthy overseas Chinese tycoon. Although he was immensely rich, he carried a yellow-skinned face. In this era when the dragon slept, people of the Dragon Kingdom with yellow skin were despised and insulted abroad. One day, a white girl, disregarding her image, leaned lazily on a railing. This scene happened to be seen by Tony, who was sitting in his luxury car. Carefully, he approached her. When he clearly saw the French girl's face up close, her youthful yet nearly perfect beauty deeply attracted him, making him nervous and clumsy. Even the hand holding his cigarette trembled, yet he was met with the girl's merciless rejection. To ease the awkwardness, he lit another cigarette for himself and tried to strike up conversation, but again, the girl completely ignored him. For Tony, proud since childhood, this was unbelievable, such a handsome man. And you don't even look at me, are you blind? Summoning courage, he continued chatting nervously, words jumbled. The girl, however, caught sight of his black luxury car and became curious. He turned out to be a rich young master. She realized he was from a wealthy Dragon Kingdom family. Tony bragged that his family not only had countless villas and cars, but also aircraft carriers and spaceships. He then offered to drive her to school. Looking again at the luxury car and recalling her own family of four squeezed into a shabby, cramped house, she thought of her chance to escape poverty. So she accepted. The girl's name was Jane. At home, her mother was extremely biased, her elder brother addicted to drugs and domineering, her second brother weak and constantly bullied by the elder. Even though the family was destitute, they still looked down on the wealthy, yellow-skinned Tony. Their only pride lay in their white bloodline and beauty. In those times, white people could claim superiority simply from skin color. As the luxury car drove through narrow, crowded roads, Tony was anxious. Their back-and-forth conversation gradually grew warm and open. Nervously, Tony reached for her hand, gently brushing her pinky. Seeing no rejection, he boldly interlocked fingers with her. That instant of their fingers intertwining felt as if two wandering souls finally found solace. When the car arrived at her school, they reluctantly released each other's hands. Watching Jane walk into the school, Tony felt his heart grow empty. Later, lying on a bed gossiping with her friend, Jane's mind replayed the moment of their interlocked fingers. The stirring in her heart could hardly be controlled by two passionate youths. The next day, outside school, she again saw that black luxury car. With firm steps, she walked toward it. Just one glance through the window, one faint smile, and both of their hearts skipped. Soon, every time she went somewhere, Jane would search for Tony in the crowd. After everything calmed, she realized how much her restless heart longed for his presence. One afternoon before a holiday, Jane again saw the black car waiting at the gate. Without hesitation, she went to him. They exchanged smiles, silent yet full of understanding. Tony took her to an apartment in Chinatown. He told her this was where wealthy men kept mistresses. Jane looked around and asked him about it. Seeing her tender, budding beauty, Tony grew timid. He realized his feelings weren't just lust. Jane's response dispelled his hesitation. Setting aside the question of love, what followed was better left undescribed. Minutes later, Jane ended a painful yet not regretted journey. The noise outside masked the storm inside that apartment. Afterward, Tony still asked questions he already knew the answers to. Jane wasn't sure if her response satisfied him, but they spent the whole day together. At night, Tony took her to a fancy restaurant. Jane joked that if her family knew she became a Dragon Man's lover, they'd kill her. Tony replied with words against his heart, and Jane too felt perhaps it was better this way. That night, Jane returned to her dorm, unsettled by his words. Their meetings grew more frequent. Soon, classmates noticed her always leaving in a luxury car. Gossip spread. Jane grew tired during classes, and the school disapproved of her staying out overnight. One day, her mother saw her return in Tony's car. Jane casually explained he was just a rich friend giving her a ride. But her mother showed school records of her absences. Her brother mocked her, calling her a whore, blaming her for the family's disgrace. Still, Jane brought her family to dine at a fancy restaurant arranged by Tony. Her relatives mocked him while greedily devouring the food. To prove they only valued his money, they ignored his polite words. Afterward, her brother shoved the bill toward Jane, who in turn handed it to Tony. As he counted the bills, Jane's mother secretly peeked at the thick wad in his wallet, her eyes lighting up. Jane smiled smugly. Later, her brother provoked Tony, who endured politely but lost face. Meanwhile, Jane pulled her younger brother to the dance floor, swaying closely, pushing Tony's limits. Furious, Tony dragged her back to the apartment, slapped her hard, and vented his humiliation and anger. Afterward, Jane casually asked him something while sitting at the bed's edge. Tony, frustrated, threw 500 francs at her and slumped into a chair, helpless. The next day, Jane gave that money to her mother, who accepted it shamelessly and even asked the school to loosen Jane's dorm rules. Soon, Jane was openly isolated by classmates. Meanwhile, Tony, on a boat ride, remembered their car conversations. Jane had said she would return to France after graduation. He felt reluctant to part, so he slipped off the ring his mother left him and put it on Jane's finger. Back home, Tony knelt before his father, confessing he loved a French girl. But his father revealed he had already arranged Tony's marriage. Tony had to choose between family duty and love. The next day, Tony told Jane he would marry another. Though he admitted he didn't love his fiancée, Jane replied coldly. Her beauty always masked a lonely, ruthless heart. At sunset, they stood side by side, their backs full of sorrow. Back in their love-filled apartment, Tony gazed deeply at Jane, knowing he had to give up. Though resigned to his father's will, his heart was dead. Days later, on a stormy night, Jane again came to the apartment. Tony, empty-eyed and broken, knew he'd soon marry and she would return to France. They agreed to meet once more after his wedding, for a final farewell. On his wedding day, surrounded by guests, Tony spotted Jane's face in the crowd, but soon vanished. Back in France, Jane learned Tony had secretly paid off her brother's gambling debt and even covered their travel expenses. Though she had rejected him coldly, her mother saw through everything. Jane waited at their apartment for their last meeting, but Tony never came. She left in disappointment. On the ship back to France, she looked for him at the dock, but he wasn't there. Only as the ship departed did she spot the familiar black car in the corner. He was inside, watching her. She lifted her leg against the railing, recalling their first meeting. The ship drifted farther, his figure fading, the sea silent under the moon. Piano music echoed in her ears, breaking her fragile heart. His love had come too late, and late love meant she would never see him again. Back in France, Jane lived through war, marriage, divorce, and eventually became a writer. When she was old and gray, she received a call from Tony. He told her, even if they never met again in this life, he had always loved her, and he would bury that love in his heart forever until eternity. And that wraps up the story and our breakdown of these fascinating characters. From their deepest flaws to their hidden strengths, every decision shaped the way this movie unfolded. Which character do you relate to or find the most unforgettable? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more character deep dives and movie explanations. See you in the next video.